Welcome back to Surviving the Street, and this is episode 2 of the Monday Morning Quarterback Show. If you find value in this show, you're going to have to interact with it because YouTube will restrict this content, and if nobody's seeing it, it might not be worth my labor to continue providing this service. If you think it's weird liking, disliking, or commenting on a video, imagine being a 33-year-old man talking to a camera at 3 in the morning. This will probably be the only video critique on this episode because it's pretty long and I have a lot to say about it. Keep in mind, this is not the full-length video. I have only pieced together what I think is valuable from a tactical learning perspective. This is the first and hopefully last video I have to make where I am actually going to warn you that what you are about to witness will probably piss you off. I'll play the video for you to see and then I will play it back and talk about the training points. In this video, a Baltimore County police officer is responding to a domestic disturbance. This is part 1 of 2.
Shots fired, shots fired. Shots fired.
Direct on that, or officer, okay?
I can't tell.
Number back start.
Eight, 2 down. I jumped off the porch. Damn it. I'm right here. I'm good. I'm good. I don't think I'm hit.
You know, people out there, any updates? 813. Victim at the front door. The subject's not complying. We can't see him. There's rugs in front of the porch. But he is still on the front porch. I need views to the rear south.
I'm about to start giving you my critiques, and if you have been around the channel or the Instagram at Surviving the Street, you know that what you are about to hear is not my usual tone. But I'm a little angry and I'll try to keep it as professional as possible. When you are approaching a residence on a disturbance call, be aware of your light and noise discipline. You have no idea what you are getting yourself into, and you could be making the suspect aware of your presence, which could give him an opportunity to prepare himself to hurt you. Shining your light all over the windows of the house means you could have potentially lost a tactical advantage you may have had, because if there was an element of surprise, it's now likely lost. Whether or not you live or die will largely be determined on your ability to identify and mitigate threats. Standing in front of the door when knocking on it is what taking unnecessary risk looks like. The first problem we need to be concerned about is somebody shooting through the door. How do we mitigate that problem? At a minimum, stand off to the side. The next problem is the bad guy walking out of the door and trying to kill us. How do we mitigate that problem? Make it more difficult for the suspect and increase your reaction time by standing on the hinge side of an outward opening door, because doing so will force the bad guy to overcome that angle to orientate the gun towards you. When approaching a residence or any structure on a disturbance call, listen to what's happening before you do anything. What you hear may drive your decision making and allow you to make an informed decision. A lot of the time you hear nothing, which means it's probably time to knock and make contact. And sometimes, like this case, you hear someone screaming for their life, which means you should probably be taking a completely different course of action. If this officer would have just taken an extra second to listen, he may have heard the female screaming for help. Which means, had he actually done what he was supposed to do, he could have breached or probably just opened the door while announcing and at least maintained an element of surprise while confronting the suspect. This is probably the officer that hides in the back at training and never puts himself out there just to hope he is never faced with a situation like this. I can't think of any other reason why you would hear someone screaming for help and not attempt to make immediate entry. This is the mentality that was also the issue in Uvalde, which we somehow think we will correct by building tactical skills. You're not going to respond to every disturbance call with your gun out, but when you hear someone screaming for help, that's a clear indication that you need to draw your gun. This officer doesn't recognize this clear and obvious driving factor to launch a rescue and doesn't even draw his gun until the suspect begins firing. Since the vast majority of cops are killed before they draw their gun or fire a round, this is exactly how you become a statistic. How could you stand there and listen to someone being killed and make no attempt to do anything about it? What can you do here? A threshold evaluation or slicing the pie. Start looking for work, be methodical, assess, and probably shoot that guy a lot. Let's say you don't conduct a threshold evaluation and you decide to stand in the corner and listen to the lady being murdered. And let's say the bad guy walks out and you shoot at least at him like he did in this case. Now what do? You stay on that guy, you press him, and you don't stop until he is no longer a threat. If you didn't hit him, at least you caused things to happen in his space, which probably allows you time to do exactly that. Why am I so confident that if the officer would advance while firing, he could have eliminated the threat? Because when you are faced with incoming rounds, human behavior is to move away, turn away, or do anything other than what you are currently doing. In this instance, you would have potentially disrupted the bad guy's OODA loop cycle, and now he has to react to you, which is really difficult to do when you are being shot at. The officer places his own life over the citizens and jumps off the patio to move further away from the problem he should be solving. I am not asking you to stack bodies at the door and cause more unmanageable issues. I am giving you the information you need to deal with this problem, and based on what I am seeing, this officer had the opportunity to do exactly that. The priority of life is innocent civilians, yourself, and then the suspect. The officer says, "I can't talk," which is a clear indication that the officer is panicked and basically in condition black. He is in a state of panic and confusion because he walked up to the door of a disturbance as if he was trying to sell solar rather than believing someone might try to kill him. When you are surprised, everything goes to hell, and everything that happens after that is largely based on luck and not skill. This officer's level of mental and physical conditioning is 0. I don't know what every officer thinks this job is, but you carry a gun for a living. People expect you to walk through the threshold to save other people's lives when it's necessary to do so. If those are the cards you happen to be dealt that day, that's it. Whether or not you see the need to be prepared for that moment is no one else's fault but your own. Notice how the officer has a light on his handgun, but he never actually uses it. That's because he is unfamiliar with his weapon system and his equipment, and he hasn't developed a process for how and when to use it. He's also out of breath after very minimal levels of physical exertion, which shouldn't happen to you if you are mentally and physically prepared. Let's just say you do all the morally and ethically wrong things this officer did and abandon an innocent victim and end up behind a vehicle as the other officers arrive. What can you do at this point? At a minimum, you need to communicate with arriving officers that there is a victim and you need to launch a rescue. And guess what? Whoever is willing to go with you is all you have, and you're going to have to deal with it. I'm not sure if you can handle any more of this, but here is the second valuable part of this video.
No. Shots.
Let's watch that again. The officer loads the magazine, never cycles the bolt carrier group by charging the rifle using the charging handle, and attempts to fire. And it seems very obvious his rifle isn't going to do what he thinks it will do. Again, the level of incompetence and even understanding the basic mechanics of a rifle is astounding. But it gets worse. He charges the rifle and you can hear the bolt reciprocate, but you can tell it doesn't sound like a round entered the chamber, which also probably means his magazine is not inserted all the way in the magazine well. I suspect he jammed 30 rounds into his magazine and it is preventing his ability to fully seat his magazine. This isn't always the case, and oftentimes you can get it to work with 30 rounds, but to avoid the problem entirely, just load your magazine with 28 to 29 rounds. But it gets worse. He pulls the magazine out, puts it back in, charges the rifle, but holds down the bolt catch, or bolt release, whatever you want to call it. So now his bolt is locked to the rear, and he tries to fire again. Of course, that doesn't work, so he just dumps his magazine on the ground, because why would you need to retain probably his only rifle magazine in a gunfight? After doing all the wrong things to get his rifle to finally work, he just says the hell with it and throws his rifle down. Because why would you need a sling for a rifle when you can just have the ground hold it for you? If innocent civilians isn't enough motivation for you, what a disservice to your wife and kids to not do everything you can to be the most capable individual you can be. Because had he pressed the officer, I'm confident he would be dead. Are you really going to go out there and just make up everything as you go? Are you really going to do that to your own family, or in this case, someone else's family? There are a number of different tactically sound officers, and those are this officer who probably does absolutely nothing in regards to training, other officers who are actually getting after it on the street and occasionally trained, who also believe they are capable, although it is rarely tested. Then an even smaller type of officer who sees and understands the value in training and continues to learn and grow. In this incident, many other officers arrived, a lot of shooting happened, the suspect was eventually shot on the porch, they made the approach, found the deceased victim and the deceased suspect. I don't think there's anything I can do or say to change your mentality on the matter, but if you do care about being the most capable individual you can be, you should consider subscribing and engaging with me on this channel. By doing so, you are assisting me in building this community, and if that interests you, tap on the logo.
We got crews coming.